But first up, she is the author of Hand to Mouth, Living in Bootstrap America. I think a very important book. Linda Tirado. Hey, Linda. Pleasure to meet you. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Well, I read your book. It's fantastic. It's such an important issue that I think we have to get into, especially here because we're right after an election. And I thought it was interesting. About only a third of the country voted, and a third of the country is desperately poor, but it's not the same third.
Imagine that.
Yeah, and so just quickly, why is it you think that poor people don't vote?
I mean, look, you're going to give me a party full of rich people or a different party of rich people who work harder on my issues. And, you know, look, there's a partisan divide, obviously, between who's on what side of which issue, and I personally tend to like Democrats, but I'm not going to say that it makes sense. They're dialing for dollars for 4 hours out of their entire day, and then they take how much vacation. Really, if it comes down to us or Boeing, who do we think has the votes in general?
Right. But isn't it also that we should make voting, I mean, Election Day, a holiday? A lot of times poor people are working 2 or 3 jobs, right? Didn't you work 3 jobs?
I did actually. And at various parts of my life, I would have kids and husband and jobs, and he was working in logistics. And we're on the bus, and that's like 2 hours there and 2 hours back. And, you know, if you don't have your ID and a DNA sample and your firstborn, and, you know. So you have all these things, and then people go, but it's so easy. Why don't you just go?
It's not right.
It's not that easy.
And let's get to that, because your story is so interesting, and I'm so glad that you're really kind of now an ex-poor person.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. Actually, I highly recommend it. Everybody should get a book deal. That's how we're gonna. That's how we're gonna lift America out of poverty.
See, if I was a Republican, what I would say is everybody should get a book deal.
Yeah,
that's what Mitt Romney would say. Why can't you just get a book deal like everybody else and pull yourself out of poverty? And
look, Mitt Romney thought he was poor when he was living on his dividends.
Right.
So. But what it comes down to is, like, people talk to me and they say, oh, you should be glad you got this, everything is great. And I go, that's lovely for me. Talk to me about the other 45 million Americans who are living the same life that I did this time last year. Because we all can't get a spot on Maher. I think it's fantastic. Thank you for having me. But this is no way.
But I hope the reviews say Maher is spot on.
Yes. But look, this is no way to run a country. You can't look at somebody and say, oh my God, look at how hard you're working. We're just going to pluck you out, and everybody else, go fuck yourselves.
Right. That is actually in the Republican platform.
I think it's on the 5th page. Yeah.
But your story, now, I think it's great. I mean, you wrote a article.
No, I was talking to my friends on Gawker.
Is that really where it came about?
It really was, on the back page.
The whole thing,
Gawker,
why I make terrible decisions?
Yeah, one of my friends.
And it went viral.
Yeah, it went super, super viral. And then Penguin said, oh, you should write a book. And I said, yes, because I'm not dumb.
Sure.
And so I did, and that's literally it. It's nothing more than, have you ever stopped to think about the fact that we're not allowed to pee for 6 solid hours?
Right.
And maybe that's why we have a crappy look on our face. Maybe I just desperately want to go to the bathroom, and you're the thing between me and that door, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and let's talk about the fact that when you're poor, there's just no margin for error.
Yeah, well, we're not wearing our hair shirts properly.
You what?
We're not wearing our hair shirts properly. You know, we occasionally enjoy life. We do things for amusement, sometimes out of a sense of, I don't know, humanity. And every time you do that, you're doing it wrong. Like, point to me the poor person who's in the Betty Ford clinic. Or a high-end sex club anywhere. Find me the low-income people there. So we know everybody
Or who can
has
engage
vices.
in some retail therapy.
Right.
That's probably not on your list.
Not normally, no. And we know that everybody has vices. It's only the poor people we demonize for them, because no offense, you have smoked, I'm gonna say, some weed that one time. That is not an admission your average poor person would publicly make.
But I was poor too. I became a pot dealer because I couldn't afford to buy pot. It's true.
Tell me that's a true story.
That is such a true story.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I never smoked pot before.
Good strategy.
Yeah, exactly. I never smoked pot in high school. I went off to college. I started to smoke pot. I couldn't afford it. I was like, well, I can afford it if I sell it.
Yeah.
Because you buy a pound, which is 16 ounces, and then you divide it into 17 parts. the part for me we would call the head tax.
Yes. See, and they say poor people aren't innovative.
No, they are. They are. Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a hell of a bit of entrepreneurship you're
Yeah,
showing
I mean,
there.
I remember when it was like to be poor, and it
Yeah.
sucked. I mean, the only thing I will ever miss about it is the joy of a bargain. I remember when I was first in New York, I bought a jacket, a sport jacket I had none, for $5. It cost me $25 to get it tailored so it would fit me.
But $30.
But for $30, I had a jacket, and I wore it every day the first 2 years in comedy, which of course the sleeves pushed up, because
Right.
it was 1980. You know, that's how we did it back then.
You can be forgiven for everything you did circa 1980.
But
You know, here's the thing though. The thing I miss is the solidarity. Is you don't get that sense of community outside of working class spaces where we all know each other's kids' names, and we also know how sick you got that last November, that you have seasonal illnesses, that you're going to need a little bit of help. Those sorts of back and forth, it doesn't exist outside of the working classes because it doesn't need to. You're self-sufficient, and I will say I miss that.
And what I mean by no margin for error is like if your car breaks down, if you break a bone, these kind of things, what are you going to do? Because you
I
barely...
once lost an entire truck because I couldn't afford $100 for the tow fee.
Right.
And they keep it, and then they charge you $100 every day for storage, and then you go on your payday and you say, I have that $100, and they go, okay, look at you being cute.
Right. No, I read it in your book. You had an accident, a car accident. You got your teeth knocked out. So now you don't have money to fix your teeth, so you can't get a job because nobody good hires you with no teeth, except, of course, fucking Mickey D's.
Right. Right. And then people look at you and go, why do you work here?
By the way, I brought this, you know, McDonald's put out McResource tips a couple of years ago.
Oh, is this the one on how much to tip your pool boy?
No, it says, don't let the distraction of your money worries prevent you from getting regular exercise, eating healthy, and getting enough sleep.
That's true.
Why didn't you do that?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, though. I'm going to be honest. I just hate sleeping.
Another great point you make is when you're poor, you can't really be healthy. They're
No.
mutually exclusive.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know, okay, so studies show us that actually performing happiness inhibits your ability to feel happiness when you're off work, all right? So you're already depressed all the time.
Right.
And then you're having to eat convenience food because you're in between shifts, and you know what's really quick? Fucking McDonald's.
Right.
Right? So you go to McDonald's and you eat
Oh.
the food, and then that stuff gives you a hit of dopamine, and then you go to work and some guy tells you something and you really want to punch him in the face, but what you do instead is smoke a cigarette.
I remember when I had a bad summer job once, like moving tar.
Oh, God.
Like pushing tar on it. And at night I would dream about pushing tar. It's like, even when I was dreaming, I wasn't out of myself. I'd wake up, after dreaming about pushing tar, and then go and push
Listen,
tar.
I can explain why there are ads about that woman having castrated pigs, because I worked on a pig farm. The
Right.
smell never leaves you.
Oh, I'm sure.
Never. Like 20, 30 years later, this woman is still haunted by that 1 week she spent castrating pigs.
Right.
Like, because I
And
was
that's
there
just-
for 2 weeks,
Right.
and I thought I was a champ.
That's just the workers. What about the pigs? They smell too.
That's
right?
true. I think they don't.
What about this? It says at least 2 vacations a year can cut heart attack risk by 50%. Why didn't you think of that?
And it almost makes you wonder, are they trying to actually, like, create heart attacks in their workers when they read this? Because we don't even get paid sick days, dude. You know, every time you go to a fast food restaurant, they have to sign off and say, like, everybody on shift is visibly healthy, right? That's a crapshoot, all right?
Right.
You go to fast food, you go to any service industry job, whether it's food, whether it's retail, somebody there has the flu.
Right.
Somebody has the flu, and you just gotta hope to God they're really good hand washers.
Right.
But yeah, take a few sick days. That's cool. You didn't need to pay your rent this month. That's
Well, I wish we had a lot more time to talk about this. Come back and do it. And
Absolutely.
welcome to the middle class. All right, Linda. All right, let's meet our panel.